I heard you guys were looking for strong female protagonists. Well, I got one for you here. Arguably the fastest and most agile of them all. I mean, just look at those teeth and claws. Good role model if you ask me. What's your favorite Sega Genesis game? Is it Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Or Castlevania Bloodlines? Or is it Rocket Knight Adventures? Well, one of my favorites is a game that I don't see brought up very often, and it's a shame because it's fantastic. Battlemania 2. Now, a few of you out there know what I'm talking about, but for the majority of you who don't, here's a quick history. You may have heard of Vic Tokai before. They put out a lot of great games in the 16-bit generation of consoles like Flink, Socket, and one of my favorites, Decap Attack. But in 1992, they took a chance and released a new game to the masses, Battlemania. This heavily anime-influenced game put players in control of two teenage girls, Mania and Maria, as they flew on jetpacks and blasted through everything that came their way. The game received great reviews in Japan and was soon brought over to North America, albeit with a few changes. The title was changed to Troubleshooter and the names of the heroines were changed to Madison and Crystal. Aside from that, the gameplay was left unaltered, so it's still an excellent game, but it didn't sell well in North America. I want you guys to just take a wild guess as to why it didn't sell so well. If you guessed box art, well, you're absolutely right. Like, what the heck did they do? Look at the original Japanese cover. It looks awesome. Madison and Crystal are right up front and it looks great. This just looks like the poster for a bad 80s action film. Also, Madison and Crystal are supposed to be 18, and I don't know about you, but these girls look a bit older than 18 to me. I think Mega Man could fit in great here. See, it's like he was made for this. So yeah, despite the less than ideal box art, Troubleshooter was still well received. The game's plot involves the mysterious Colonel Patch, who hires the Troubleshooters to protect this prince who has been kidnapped by the weapons warlord Blackball. Gameplay-wise, it's your typical 2D shooter, but you play as a fusion of two characters together. Madison can only fire right, whereas Crystal's direction can be changed by pressing the C button. With addicting gameplay and an emphasis on lighthearted humor, Troubleshooter became a sleeper hit on the Genesis. But the dev team were not done with the Troubleshooters, and 1 year later, Vic Tokai released Battlemania Daiginjo, which got incredible reviews all across the board. Sadly, this game would receive a very limited print run only in Japan and South Korea. Despite the limited print, word spread quickly about how great the game was, and soon people began importing it only to discover that the game is pretty text-heavy. Thankfully, in 2006, a fan translation patch was released, allowing the game to be more accessible to those in the West. And with the fan translation, you know what that means. Reproduction cartridges. Yep, I got this one, which looks convincingly like an official North American Sega Genesis release. It even includes a manual which has a short manga inside, so that's a great touch. The game has become known as Troubleshooter Vintage in the West due to that title being on an international ROM header in the game's files. The reproductions tend to use both titles though, which is fine by me. So now, 27 years after the game's release, let's play Battlemania 2 and see what all the hype is about. And that's what the epilepsy warning was for. After making sure that your eyes are working properly, the game picks up at the end of Troubleshooter 1, after Blackball's defeat. A mere 3 days later, Blackball manages to resurrect and challenges Madison to meet him at the Tokyo government office. Since Crystal is still passed out from partying after their victory in the first game, Madison goes alone for the first level. One huge improvement this game offers over its predecessor is the option to choose your style of shooting. In Troubleshooter, Madison could only face right while Crystal could change her direction. Troubleshooter Vintage allows you to choose either 2, 4, or 8-way shooting. I'll say this now, you pick 8-way shooting as your option. 2-way is good if you're coming straight from Troubleshooter 1, and 4-way is fine if it's your first time playing the game, but 8-way fire is really where it's at. The way the game handles it is kind of weird though. As long as you're firing, Madison will stay locked in the direction she's facing. When you're not firing, you'll be free to move around the screen and change the direction of fire. What this boils down to in the heat of battle is that you'll be constantly releasing the fire button, holding the D-pad in the direction you want to shoot, and then holding the button back down. It takes some time to get used to, but it really is the best way to play. The A button is reserved for your special attack, of which there are 4. 2 horizontal lasers, a pair of vertical chainsaws, an explosion that rotates around Madison, and my personal favorite, a lightning screen nuke. These special weapons charge automatically during gameplay, so they can't be used constantly. After ascending this skyscraper and battling an evil clone of herself, Madison comes face to face with Blackball. Your shots don't seem to be doing much, that is until Crystal comes smashing through the glass, sacrificing the duo's car to take Black Ball down. From this point onward, you'll have both girls to play as. You're ranked at the end of every stage, and your rank will go up as your score does. It's a good motive to shoot as much as possible. Crystal is able to track Black Ball's signature, so the two set out to catch him. I should mention that there are no lives in Battle Mania 2. Instead, the game operates on hit points. These can be added by collecting heart icons or by scoring points. If you lose all your hit points, it's an automatic game over, so be careful. Other power-ups include Speed Up and Speed Down, which will increase or decrease your movement speed respectively, and weapon power-ups, which will add more firepower to your existing guns. It's really important to power up as much as possible, since at max power, your projectiles take up a large portion of the screen and you really become a force to be reckoned with. After fighting their way across several bullet trains, the girls reach Ghost Whale Temple, the headquarters of the Ghost Whale cult. Inside, they find new obstacles like extremely narrow passages, barriers that can block your way, and enemies that just pop out from the walls. And the boss flat out tells you where to hit him. Well, at least he's nice about it.
Did I mention that this game has a great sense of humor?
Descending deeper into the recesses under the Ghost Whale Temple, the number of hazards ramps up significantly. Moving walls, rotating saw blades, and weird alien-like heads are only the beginning of what you'll have to deal with here. It's very easy to accidentally get crushed by the moving walls, so you'll have to stay on guard. Upon reaching the bottom, the girls face off with this rotating purple thing, I don't really know what to call it, and a robot who plays basketball. The ball itself is the main hazard as it can split into multiple copies. But overcome this boss and you'll find the true mastermind, the pure Ghost Whale. He welcomes the girls to his lair and claims that Madison's brain would be the perfect fit for the massive vehicle behind him, as she has the primal instincts of only advancing toward her target. Madison of course refuses, only for the vehicle to begin a violent rampage, heading straight for the city. Wasting no time, Crystal grabs the duo's backup car to chase it down. You'll only be able to shoot as Madison for this stage since Crystal was driving the car, but you still have full control of both. This stage is one of my favorites as it has a bunch of references to other games. Remember Vic Tokai's game Socket? Well, he's apparently not allowed here, but that won't stop him because hey, there he is! Also, they must have really hated Nintendo because there's an entire section of this stage where all the enemies are Caped Mario from Super Mario World. That's subtle to say the least. After destroying the core of the Ghost Whale mobile, Madison and Crystal head inside to track down the pure Ghost Whale. This stage features some impressive scrolling effects for the Genesis, and it's another stage where you can easily get crushed by the walls and ceilings. After a tense journey through narrow passageways, the boss is a claw machine. Talk about subverting expectations. This entire game is great at it. You'll have to destroy 3 different robots that the claw picks up before you can move on. It's at this point that we see a returning character. It's Colonel Patch from the first game. He tells the girls that pure Ghost Whale is hiding out at the top of the temple and warns them that he might be an alien. The journey to the top of the temple is nerve-wracking and features some strange-looking creatures to say the least. There are times when you'll have to defeat a certain enemy in order to open up a passage to move on, so be on your toes. At last, we come face to face with the pure Ghost Whale, and he wastes no time in capturing Crystal, so we're back to having just Madison for this fight. He takes a lot of hits, and he has some devastating attacks, such as when he spawns lightning on both sides of you. The only way out is to shoot through it before it reaches you. Crystal does rejoin you midway through the battle, so your firepower isn't decreased for long. With enough perseverance, pure Ghost Whale is reduced to nothing but a head, and a piece of the roof seemingly takes him out for good. The game's not over yet though, as pure Ghost Whale not only activates a bomb that will destroy the entire temple, but he sets fire to Madison and Crystal's apartment, forcing you to keep the same special weapon as the previous stage. It's a race against time, literally, to escape the temple before everything comes crashing down. The game throws everything you've seen up to this point at you, all the enemies and hazards you can think of. Narrow passages, moving walls, and tons of enemies all come at you at once. It can be a bit overwhelming, but fight your way through and one more obstacle blocks your path. Black Ball. He's the reason this all started, so bring your A-game and shoot him with everything you have. After defeating Black Ball, the girls are successful in opening the exit tunnel out of the temple, but the explosion incapacitates them. Fortunately, Colonel Patch arrives in time to rescue the girls before the entire temple goes up in smoke. Everyone relaxes, having escaped the temple, but the game throws one last curveball as it reveals that pure Ghost Whale is not entirely dead. He reveals his face and mutates into this horrifying looking thing that kills you in one hit. This is the most challenging boss in the game since he takes up so much of the screen, but hit him with enough firepower and he explodes in a spectacular fashion. Congratulations, you just beat Battle Mania 2. Our heroes watch as the temple comes crumbling down, and as Madison and Crystal realize that their cars are destroyed and they're still broke, everyone heads out to grab drinks at Colonel Patch's expense, ending Battle Mania 2. Now if you couldn't tell already, I love this game.
I discovered it by total accident while browsing the Sega Genesis reviews on Sega16.com years ago, and I'm so glad I did. The game is always in your face, throwing new enemies and hazards your way, and the level design is excellent. There were only a few times where I ran into something that would cause a sudden game over, such as those moving walls that can trap you, but aside from that, I consider the game to be challenging but not cheap. The controls are tight, graphics are excellent for the Genesis with some impressive multi-layered scrolling, and can I just say that the soundtrack is one of the best on the system? There's not a single track in this game that I don't like, and each one makes great use of the system's limited sound hardware. Anytime somebody tells you that Genesis music sucks, just pull up a track from this game to change their mind. If I had one main criticism, the game is on the shorter side and can be beaten in around an hour if you know what you're doing. There are 9 levels total, but they only last a couple minutes each. During that hour though, the game is always throwing more excitement your way, and it never lets up until the credits start rolling. I love to go back and play through this game periodically since it's just so much fun. This is a true hidden gem on the Genesis.
So the series had 2 really well-received games on the Mega Drive, and then what? Well, nothing. Yeah, the 2 games came out and then the series just kind of disappeared. It's really sad since these games were so fantastic.
There was a planned third game for the Dreamcast called Mania NY, but it never got past the planning phase. Madison and Crystal did make a cameo appearance in the Japan-only Dreamcast game Sega Gaga, but that was the last anyone ever saw of them. It's a shame really, because I love these characters. Madison and Crystal are extremely likable and funny, and they're constantly breaking the fourth wall. I really do think Vic Tokai had a winner on their hands here, but they never chose to continue the series. Vic Tokai is still around today as Tokai Communications, but they have long since left video game development. Sega did end up purchasing some of their IPs such as Decap Attack, but it's unknown right now who owns the license to Mania. With the recent releases of the Sega Ages games, I think this would be the perfect time to re-release the 2 Mania games to introduce a new generation to Madison and Crystal. Maybe use it to gauge interest in a potential new game, you know? Sadly, it probably won't happen, but I can dream, right? The Mania games have sadly been left mostly in the past, but those who stumble across these games nowadays can find 2 great hidden gems for the Genesis or Mega Drive. And if you play these games today, make sure to do it on a larger CRT or display. Sorry Nomad, your tiny screen just doesn't cut it.
And that's going to do it from me for the Troubleshooter franchise. I'm curious as to what you all think about both games in the series, so feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, there's just one more thing that I've been thinking about that hasn't been able to get off my mind lately. Just why wasn't Troubleshooter Vintage released in the West? Was it issues with a potential translation? No, there couldn't be it. There had to be more to it than that, right? Oh yeah, this probably had something to do with it.